Hi, I'm Daniel Gold, and welcome to the Gold Standard Leadership Lab. By day, I'm a partner at a leading advisory firm where I draw upon my background as an attorney to help my clients succeed. This podcast, though, is my personal project, completely separate and apart from my day job, but reflects the same passion that I exhibit everywhere for teaching, mentoring, and helping others succeed through simple, impactful lessons. It is my hope that you'll walk away with practical takeaways to help you on your leadership journey. Thanks for being a part of this community and for joining me in the Leadership Lab. Let's get started. Here is a truth most leaders do not want to hear. You are replaceable. That's right, every single one of us. The corner office, the title, the authority you've accumulated over decades of grinding, all of it can be filled by someone else, and probably much sooner than you might think. Now, here's the question that separates good leaders from great ones. Are you building an organization that will thrive when that replacement happens? Or are you building a house of cards that collapses the moment you walk out the door? If you stepped away tomorrow, what would happen to your team? Do they have the skills, the confidence, and the systems to continue? Or does everything grind to a halt while people scramble to figure out what exactly you did? Your answer, by the way, reveals everything about the kind of leader that you are. Egocentric leaders build dependency. They hoard knowledge. They create bottlenecks through which every decision flows. And when they leave, and they always leave, they leave wreckage. Now, the opposite to egocentric leadership is ecocentric leadership. Ecocentric leaders build ecosystems. They distribute capability. They plant seeds in people who will outgrow them. And when they leave, the organization barely skips a beat. This is what I like to call the replaceable paradox. You see, the leaders who matter most are the ones who make themselves matter the least. The shift from egocentric to ecocentric leadership sounds very noble in theory. I understand that. But in practice, it actually requires rewiring how we think about success, about legacy, and frankly, our own significance. But here's the remarkable part. The rewiring that I am referring to isn't fighting human nature. It's actually returning to it. You see, there is this image that I keep returning to when I'm calibrating my own moral compass as a leader. It's of an elderly person kneeling in the dirt to plant a fruit tree. Now, from a purely transactional standpoint, one might think that this act makes no sense at all. The return on investment calculation fails. Why would someone expend precious energy on a harvest that biology says, well, frankly, they may never taste? But it is not for her that she does it, but rather for the generation to come. And here's what makes this fascinating. Again, we are actually wired correctly for this. When we act for future generations, our brains light up. Specifically, the aspect of our brain is called the ventral striatum, this same part that processes long-term rewards. The elderly gardener planting that tree isn't being selfless despite her biology. She's really expressing human nature in its most purest form. Researchers call this the immortality striving. It's the deep biological drive to contribute beyond our own timeline. We are literally built to plant trees we'll never sit under. And this is neuroscience backing up what great leaders have always known intuitively. Now, the psychologist Erik Erikson coined the term generativity for this. Now, what that means is that it's a developmental stage where adults shift from what can I accumulate to what can I contribute. Without that shift, leaders stagnate. They become self-absorbed. They optimize for their own comfort, their own status, their own legacy as a trophy rather than a gift. The gold standard approach requires rejecting the ego. Leadership is not about shining the spotlight on oneself, but rather finding the rays of light on others. This moves you from star to lighting director. Your job isn't to be seen. Your job is to make sure that the right people are seen at the right moments. Now, look at the data on organizational longevity. Companies built around charismatic narcissists might experience short-term growth, bold moves, big risks, flashy results, but when that personality leaves, the company stumbles. It was built around a person and not a system. The ecocentric leader builds a root system, something that endures long after they are gone. Here's the problem with most leadership today. We're running factories when we should be tending orchards. Factory thinking is obsessed with this quarter's harvest, revenue, utilization, immediate deliverables. It measures output. It optimizes for what can be counted right now. But it also creates something else that I call cultural debt. That is the compounding misalignments that erode trust over time. Every shortcut, every skipped developmental conversation, every promotion without preparation adds to that cultural debt. And the interest compounds silently until the organization discovers its soil is depleted. There is a parasite feeding on this factory mindset, the erosion of deep thinking. In episode 29 of the Gold Standard Leadership Lab, The Quiet Crisis, I asked a question that keeps me up at night. Is this the end of thinking? In our AI-accelerated world, we confuse information consumption with wisdom. And we think that prompt engineering is the same as problem solving. But an orchard doesn't grow faster because you bought a more efficient tractor. It grows because the gardener understands the seasonal nuances, because she sits with the soil and observes what it needs. The ecocentric leader reclaims the art of thinking slowly in a fast world. You have to sit with uncertainty. You have to resist the urge to optimize everything into a dashboard. This is where the orchard metaphor gets uncomfortably real. In episode 36 of the Gold Standard Leadership Lab, The Promotion Trap, I unpacked a pattern I see constantly in professional services. We take a high performer, let's call her Susie, who is crushing it in her current role, and we promoted her to a leadership position without a roadmap. We celebrate the new title, the new salary, and the new business cards, and then 6 months later, we're having that performance conversation. We blame her for not being leadership material. But the truth is uglier. We failed to plant seeds before expecting a harvest. A promotion is a transition that requires intentional cultivation. If you promote someone without giving them the systems, the mentorship, and the development that they need, well, you're demanding fruit from a tree you never watered. And you're just adding to your cultural debt, and you're setting your orchard up to fail. Stewardship means preparing people for the roles you're elevating them into. The investment happens before the title change and continues long after. Promotion is the beginning of deeper development. It's not a reward for past performance. So if the goal is legacy, then what is the methodology? It's tempting to think that legacy is built on these big moments, the merger, the IPO, the crisis averted. These make great stories at retirement parties, they do. But look, here's the reality. It's not martyrdom. It's not about the big moments either. Legacy is built in the everyday moments, the one-on-one moments, the micro decisions that are made. Researchers refer to this as the leader-member exchange theory. Fancy name for a very simple truth. Your effectiveness as a leader comes down to the one-on-one relationships that you build with each person on your team. And it requires trust. and respect. Mutual obligation, that is the foundation. And those relationships aren't formed in town halls or quarterly all hands. They're formed in the small stuff. The mentorship conversation runs 10 minutes over because someone is struggling and giving credit to the analyst who actually did the work. Remembering that someone's kid had a soccer game and asking how it went. Here's where it gets interesting from a brain science perspective. When you stay those extra 10 minutes, when you absorb someone's anxiety so that they can focus, something biological happens. Oxytocin is released in you and in them. Oxytocin is the trust hormone. It's the bonding chemical. You're literally building a connection at a neurological level. And when we talked about in episode 37, when you say, "I got this" to someone who's drowning, you are creating psychological safety. They can stop worrying and start performing. That phrase triggers the same neurochemical response that builds families and communities. These micro behaviors are invisible. Why? Because no one writes case studies about them. They don't show up on the annual review. But they are the compounding interest of human capital. They accumulate silently. They build cultures of psychological safety and high performance over months and years. And the return on investment is real, it's just delayed. Now, there's something bittersweet about ecocentric leadership. If you're doing it right, you're working toward a future that you are actually excluded from. The fruit of my labor as a leader, I will likely never see ripen. And I'm okay with that. Whether it be because I have moved on or they have. This is what separates managers from real leaders. Because managers optimize for the quarter. It is the leader who optimizes for a decade. But here's the thing. You don't actually have to wait for the harvest to feel the reward. Kimberly Wade Benzoni studies how people think about their legacy. Her research shows that when we are prompted to consider how we'll be remembered, we make more ethical decisions. We allocate more resources to the future, even at the expense of present benefits. Reflecting on the next generation actually makes us better leaders today. And there's something else. Psychologists refer to this as the helper's high. When we engage in selfless acts, the brain releases dopamine. The gardener with dirty knees and an aching back isn't just tired. She's also getting a neurochemical reward for her generosity, right now and in real time. The joy isn't only in the imagined future fruit. It's happening in her brain as she tends to something beyond herself. Because we are hardwired to help others. That is amazing. Our brains reward us for generosity. This vision beyond our own timeline isn't some noble sacrifice against our nature. It's literally an expression of our deepest wiring. How remarkable is that? Now, here's how you know if you're leading ecocentrically. I've said this before, and it's worth repeating. If you lost your title tomorrow, would your team still seek you out? Would they ask for your advice because your guidance is grounded, your empathy is sharp, and your investment in them was real? Because that is the only legacy that matters. The title you held will be forgotten. The revenue you generated, that will be a line item in an archive somewhere. But the capability, the confidence, and the character of the people that you developed, well, that endures. They become leaders because you invested in them when no one else was watching. If we return to the gardener metaphor, we could take a look at this and say that she spent her days digging a hole for a sapling that looks frail and insignificant. And no one has applauded her effort. There's no immediate gratification. No one has posted about her efforts on LinkedIn. But she smiles. She smiles because she possesses a vision that extends well beyond her own timeline. And she smiles because her brain is rewarding her for it right now. The joy of sweet, ripe fruit one day will bear the remembrance of the one person making that happen. So stop looking for the spotlight. Stop trying to make yourself indispensable. Stop measuring your worth by how much the organization needs you. Instead, go find your watering can. Go tend to those roots. Plant the trees that will shade the future. Your brain will thank you, and so will the next generation of leaders. So here's some reflection questions for you. Number 1, who are you investing in that you may never see succeed? Is there anyone? Number 2, what micro decision could you make today that waters someone else's growth? And number 3, if you lost your title tomorrow, would your team still ask you for your advice? That brings me to this week's challenge. Identify one person on your team who has potential they do not yet fully recognize, and start tending to that potential with quiet, consistent attention. And notice how it feels. That warmth is your brain doing exactly what it was designed to do. And remember, leadership isn't about perfection. It is about progress. Take this lesson, put it into action, and continue setting the gold standard in your own life and at work. See you all next time.